All right. It is Wednesday, and we're back again. A little late. Excuse me. I was running late from dinner. You can see I didn't even make it out of the jacket tonight. Over here in Miami, we were in St. Pete earlier this week on the Monday, and we are in Miami today. Apex event here. It's Next Gen Family Offices, focused on like alternative investments. There's a lot of family offices that are looking to get into crypto. So I was here speaking on that. And then a lot of other interesting alternative investments. We had one of the co-founders of Reddit earlier today that spoke on a panel talking about investing in women's sports, which was really interesting, and the alpha that's there. Just an underserved market, right? It was really interesting to see, he made an investment in soccer to begin with, and now they're putting together like a whole track and field women's athlete thing, which is pretty cool, interesting to list too. And then WNBA, obviously they do some investments there, but team women's sports, and then obviously track and field's more individual. He talked about Serena Williams and her sister, and kind of how they had seen a prominent woman figure on television, winning and playing tennis, and that's what they, kind of modeled themselves after. It was also interesting to see, in men's sports, men aren't quite as much on social media, but women tend to be. And it actually, like if you looked at women NHL or NIL, athletes in college, the female athletes tend to have a better reach for their audience than the men do, which is really interesting. And then tonight they talked about AI and wealth management. We're looking at AI, for investments and stuff. One of the things that I think is going to be the biggest shift in how AI works is going to be the difference between probabilistic AI and deterministic AI. And I know you guys want to get into the crypto, and we will get there, but I think this is going to play a big role over the long term in how things actually work with this technology. You might use an LLM like ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or any of these today. And when you queue it and ask it a question, it tries to find stuff out there that supports the way you ask the question or what you want to know, right? And a lot of the times it doesn't quite get it right. With deterministic AI, it uses memory cores or pre-existing data that you feed it, and then answers it in a deterministic way based on your logic and profile in a much more direct way, rather than being probabilistic and trying to guess. And I think that's the way that AI will go over the long term. They also talked about AGI or the singularity, an actual, intelligent AI that can think and reason through things itself. I don't think we're that far off from that. I think we are a year, 2 years, maybe, like probably a maximum of 2 years away from AI that can think for itself. So, just a lot of things progressing on the alternative investment front. Obviously, you guys listen in here for the alternative investments every week. And we focus on digital assets and how to structure that the right way, mitigate taxes, set yourself up for price appreciation for the adoption of this emerging asset class. Things haven't shifted a whole lot from Monday when it comes to the Clarity Act. We do have the markup being reviewed tomorrow, which is a big deal. Digital Chamber is excited about that, I can tell you. And then in addition to that, we have the CFTC and the SEC Ag Committee meeting tomorrow, where they're going to go through, who is going to be over what when it comes to digital assets and how, the guidance from the Clarity Act is going to affect their agencies in their ability, their oversight for the asset class. It'll be really interesting to see both Paul and the new head of the CFTC, now that Caroline has moved on to MoonPay, up there speaking on the topic. That's something that I'll definitely be checking out tomorrow in between all the other stuff that I have going on here. And the other thing is, again, back in middle of the summer last year, Iran voted through Parliament that they could shut down the Strait of Hormuz. That obviously did never happen, but they still have that vote present. They could absolutely do it. And now you got Trump coming out this evening saying that they're just going to go block the whole strait by Friday, was his threat, basically. And they have all of the military in the region to be able to do it. This would absolutely affect oil and the supply chain and Japan and everything else going on there. We'll see what the Fed does tomorrow, and that may kind of guide what Trump does with where he's at. I think he's got him in a corner. The Fed doesn't want to lower interest rates because they know it's going to, unwind the reverse carry trade. They've actually started buying yen to be able to support that currency, to be able to hold it up against the U.S. dollar. U.S. dollar has fallen to its 5-year low here this week. If you look at the DXY, I think we're back down to like 96, something like that. So it's the lowest relative strength index for the dollar that we've seen in a long time. And again, that is because the Fed is trying to support the yen to make sure that they don't have too much inflation there, and the Bank of Japan has to raise interest rates. Well, if they get back into a corner and oil spikes, they're absolutely going to have to do that. And everything that I've been talking about for almost 2 years now will play out with the domino theory. And I think a lot of people are ready for that. Again, these are global macroeconomic events that have to play out in order to see these crazy high prices that I've been talking about for a long time. Without that, we really don't go anywhere. We're going to continue to trend sideways here, even down with the rest of the market. You've seen gold and silver continue to rally. Silver at almost 118. Gold is up at 5,600, all-time high for gold today and silver. That should scare you. I know a lot of people are making a lot of money on that, which is great. I'm happy for people, that were positioned. I sold mine too soon. Again, never go broke taking profits. I've seen a lot of people start to rotate out of those positions into digital assets with all of those gains, which is great. You do have tax implications, but we're here at the beginning of the year, so you're going to have a lot of time to be able to offset those when those happen. And most of the time, those are going to be long-term capital gains for those people. I would say the majority of people that have garnered large amounts of gold or silver, they would have been holding it longer than a year, right? I remember buying silver at $17, $19 in 2020 and 21. And then, gold was as low as, with premium, above spot. I think I bought an ounce for the lowest was like $1,800, $1,900. Maybe $1,700. Anyway, it's been a long time. Actually, I have to get with my accountant on the basis for all that for last year fall taxes. Hopefully you're getting your taxes done. On that topic, we are providing a nexus to a CPA through Digital Family Office. If you need somebody to help you file your taxes for your LLC that you created with us, or your regular W-2 basic tax filings, we have a partner that we're working with. We just take our affiliate fee up front through the website, and then you're passed to them. Any additional work that needs to be done, if it's more complicated, they will bill you at $200 an hour. If they get you a whole bunch of money back, you're not going to be upset about that, right? So highly recommend that. If you guys do, you haven't done your taxes yet, and you do have a corporation, this is your first time filing for one, it's $500. It's a pretty easy, simple return that they'll be able to do for you. And a lot of people are going to have disregarded entities, right? There's no income. You may have some expenses that you're able to roll forward. But outside of that, the only people that have an income for that would be people that sold over the last year in 2025. Maybe you took profits early in the year on your XRP. Awesome if you did. Maybe you bought back, when it was lower. Or maybe you participate in the funds at Digital Wealth Partners and you'll get the K1s. They're going to come alongside that for the distributions that were paid out to those investors. So yeah, that's the only regulated, SEC regulated product here in the US to be able to earn yield on your XRP. Returns, not yield, returns. Yield is coming. We're not quite there yet. We'll find out, hopefully tomorrow. been a long time coming on that one. But I do think that, with everything progressing here, it's likely that we are going to see that product come to market sooner than later, weeks, not months. And I think a lot of our people that are participating with Digital Wealth Partners will be very excited to be able to earn a monthly income off of their XRP, especially with the partner that we're going to bring that to market with. Trying to think what else off the top of hand here, off the top of my head. Really just watching Iran and the situation over there. If that does escalate, you can bet your biscuits that things are going to play out very closely to the way that I have been talking about for a long time. A couple other things. Tuesday morning we had, so the Ripple deal. There's three things. Ripple finalized their case. There was another person that sued them for losses out of California that was filed in 2019 or something. That cements them. XRP is not a security. Now that case is over, we had USAT come to market on Tuesday morning, which is Tether's compliant stablecoin here in the U.S. Pretty big deal. Bo Hines heads that up. And now I think they're in a position where they could, deleverage USDT and be okay doing so. I always thought that was kind of a pivot. Maybe I'm completely off. There's always been people that have flooded Tether, and Tether hasn't gone anywhere. It's been used to soak up U.S. Treasuries. But after the reverse carry trade unwinds, I think a lot of its use is going to be gone, and USAT will take that. Here in the U.S., they do have 3 years with USDT to get compliant. But if it depegs and has some issues, we'll have to see how everything plays out. Maybe they rotate that liquidity from USDT into USAT for all of the treasuries that they have on that balance sheet. We'll just have to see, the gold and Bitcoin that's on their balance sheet. Obviously, gold has done fantastic. Bitcoin still trending sideways here around 90,000. I think both of those are in for a big move to the downside. And again, I don't like to say that. I hope I'm wrong. I want people to make a bunch of money on gold and silver, but I do believe we're in for a pretty rough pullback. So at some point this year, maybe it takes longer, it just trends back down, but I think it'll be a violent pullback on gold to somewhere around 2,000 or 2,100, and then silver back down to touch the top at 50 before it continues higher. And I do think that they'll go higher. I just think there's going to be volatility when the reverse carry trade unwinds, which will destabilize a lot of things, including the stock market, which was also at an all-time high today. If you look at the S&P 500, we were at $7,000. It's the highest that the S&P has ever been. These are the highest valuations that the stock market has ever been at. And that's not good. Like, I don't know, again, I can't give you financial advice. I know that our advisors are talking with our clients, with their digital wealth partners, about their equity positions and how to de-risk some of that capital. If you do have a significant portion of your wealth tied up in the stock market, it might be a good time to have that conversation with your wealth manager. Again, not giving you financial advice. And this is a good time for my disclaimer. Nothing here is financial advice. It's only for entertainment and educational purposes. You need to always speak with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. The opinions shared here are my opinions. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or Digital Wealth Partners. And you should, always consult with, a tax advisor, your attorney, and your CPA before structuring or making anything, permanent or making moves, because all those things impact one another. All right, so there's the macro. That's where things are at. Those are the fun things that have happened since we talked on Monday. We'll go ahead and jump into the super chats here and run it down. We got Josh, my man. He says, looking forward to stewarding the wealth into the new earth, brother. What are your thoughts on the Fed possibly buying up a bunch of yen? They're already doing it. Will that slow the reverse carry trade? Thanks for all your insight. So they are trying to. This is kind of their last ditch effort. The Bank of Japan cannot continue to buy the yen. They print more yen. They got to raise interest rates. Their only recourse at this point to be able to strengthen the yen is to raise interest rates. And they can't do that, because if they do, then it's going to cause the reverse carry trade to unwind. The Fed also needs to hold interest rates tomorrow. We'll see what they do. I think if they do, then Trump will go ahead and block the strait on Friday, and we'll have everything happen. So be on the lookout for that. But I think that's likely the scenario. That's what's priced into the market right now. It's not Diet Coke. It is a water. Thank you. This is canned water. Sorry, I had to correct somebody over there on TikTok. It's my wife. She says tea only. I need it. I need the tea only. All they got is coffee here in the room. So water it is. But back to the reverse carry trade. So they are buying yen to be able to support that and strengthen that currency. Obviously, that's weakening dollars. You've already seen Warren Buffett rotate the majority of the treasury holdings that he had, over $400 billion. I think about 300 plus billion of that he's rotated into yen to be a liquidity provider when all of this plays out. And this is, again, the Fed's last ditch effort to keep this at bay before it becomes a problem. And oil is going to make it a problem. Let's scroll on down here in the chat. And again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Wednesday to come hang out here. I know you have a lot of things going on, and I feel really blessed to be in a position to, share time with you guys and answer great questions that you guys bring. We got Mark. He says, oil is up almost 10% in the past 30 days. How much more does it need to trigger the reverse carry trade? It's a good question. Natural gas is actually also rising there in Japan. They are feeling inflation, and that's why the Fed is buying the yen in order to be able to drive the valuation of the yen up against the US dollar. You need a spike. You need to move 20 to 30% to the upside in a very short period of time within a couple of days. That would be the ticket. That's what we need in order to be able to see all of the dominoes start to fall when the reverse carry trade rolls. And all of that liquidity gets sucked out of these markets. I don't know what we're going to see in the stock market. I think you could see 30 or 40% down in the stock market in a very short period of time. I don't think it's going to be a long deal. And I would prefer it that way. I would rather jump in the deep end, get it over with, and then build back. And I think, Trump and many others in his cabinet are probably in the same mindset. And that's why they've positioned themselves where they have. It'll be very interesting, to see M2 money supply come down, the velocity of money pick up. If we move to instant settlement, the velocity of money is going to pick up very quickly. We're going to have stable coins. It's going to be a wild ride. I know what the long-term outcome is. What order, volatility, catch the falling knife. You can play those games if you want. That's not something I'm doing. I would rather just hold and know that on the other side of it, we're good to go. Craig, my man, he says, hey, Jake, DWP here. Awesome, dude. Glad to be working with you. Do you think XLS 66D, we didn't even talk about the amendments. We'll get into that in a second. Do you think XLS 66D will allow retail to earn returns on their XRP through cold wallet? And if so, what return? How long before this is operational after successful voting on the XRPL? It's a great question. So we did see all of the fixes go live today, and then we got a few more amendments to be able to vote on, which I've been talking about for a long time, 64, 65, and 66. I did not see borrow lend. Well, actually, borrow lend is on there. Pseudo accounts is on there. I didn't see liquidity pools. Liquidity pools hasn't been put up for vote yet. Liquidity pools is how you're going to be able to earn returns on your XRP in a native DeFi situation. But we need these other ones first, right? Like you need pseudo accounts. We've structured our hedge fund the same way all of this is going to work on chain because I saw it coming, and I want to be able to tokenize the hedge fund and the XRP that we have there. We have about $400 million worth of XRP in the hedge fund being put to work right now, earning returns for clients through the strategies that we have. So we reflect that off of exchange. So it stays in institutional custody. It gets mirrored off exchange, and then we draw a line of credit against it or margin to be able to trade that in a market neutral strategy. With a pseudo account, it works the same way. You're able to delegate that value somewhere else by locking your XRP in your account. Now, that's important, especially for borrow, lend, and other stuff, because you'll be able to, lock your XRP and then borrow against it. You'll be able to get any issued asset on the XRPL as representation of value that you borrow. ROUSD, obviously, probably going to be one of the main ways that people borrow against that. But that'll, drive demand for ROUSD, which is good for Ripple. Will you be able to do it from your cold wallet? If you use what used to be Zaman and is now Actually, it is Zaman. It used to be Zum back in the day. With a Tangem card, you would probably be able to participate. You don't have to have the Tangem card. I just think that that's a good way to use it, so that nobody sees your keys. The only downside is if you lose that Tangem card and you don't have a backup attached to your account, it's done. So make sure you're using the backup account, structuring that the right way. If you're going to use a Tangem card, I think that's great tech, especially for people that are self-reliant and are okay with the radical responsibility that comes along with that. Now, inside institutional custody, just frankly, a lot of the people that are out there don't have the capability to be interoperable with the XRPL. And that is why we've structured things the way that we have. Now, over the long term, we obviously are advocating for that. And we want to implement those things so that we can have native DeFi inside of institutional custody there at Anchorage and the other partners that we're bringing on board. So I don't know how quickly we will actually be able to tokenize that representation of value. And really, there's three components here to DeFi on the XRPL. There's the native asset, right? Like people make an investment in XRP. That's cool. You have the execution layer of that, which is the on-chain capabilities, the amendments that are being passed. And then you need interoperability with other ecosystems, whether it's institutional custody or other blockchains, in order to be able to get the most benefit for that value that's being created. Ripple's done a great job of this through their acquisitions. They've got standard custody, they got Palisade, they have Medico, and they are working to implement, native XRP functionality with that custody or with those custody solutions. Those also, last time we spoke to them, don't have native execution ability to execute DeFi stuff. Now, them being Ripple, I would expect that that's absolutely on their priority list and that they will be, implementing that over the long term. But in the short term here, when these do get passed, people will be able to borrow and lend their XRP. And with the pseudo accounts, you'll be able to delegate that value and somebody else can use it for something and then, pay you a return on it. There's going to be more scams that come along with this. Even on the other side of regulation, it's a global marketplace at this point. I mean, you're seeing that with Doppler, you're seeing it with Midas, you're seeing it with us and other people that are generating returns with XRP. There's Proton. You can borrow against your XRP over there. You can lend your XRP on that chain. Anytime you're getting an issued value or issue representation of value on another blockchain, it's taxable. Just be aware of that, right? So if you are getting another token that represents the value that you put up, even though it's the same value, which I think is asinine and ridiculous, the way that the tax law is written today, and I'm hopeful that it changes, we will be lobbying for it. If you get wrapped XRP, that's an exchange of your XRP for wrapped XRP, and it's a taxable event. Which again, I think is silly, but that is the way that it works today. Flare is different because they just mirror the value on their chain. The XRP stays locked on the XRPL. So I think Flare probably has an edge there, at least until they figure out the tax stuff around representations of value across ecosystems. But with the pseudo accounts and with the borrow lend coming, I think that'll be great for people that are holding XRP in their Zaman wallet or somewhere else that can be interoperable with that. Again, each their own. We have clients that hold a portion of their stuff with us and a portion in their cold wallet. No bones about that. I have no problem with that. A lot of people that have been here for 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years, however long you've been in the asset class, you're very comfortable doing all this stuff yourself, right? You don't necessarily need a wealth manager or somebody else to help you figure it out. But you might want access to specific products that we have that you're not going to get anywhere else, right? Like a lot of what we've done is proprietary. So if you want access to those things, you could do both, right? You can participate in DeFi on your own volition through your cold wallet. And then you might, have a portion of your stuff somewhere else with us or not, earning yield in whatever product or solution is out there. You just want to make sure that you're doing due diligence on everybody. We encourage that. We want people to, pick apart what we have going on, ask questions. And, again, we just want to continue to educate people and make sure that they understand the risks with the things that they're doing. DeFi is inherently risky, right? There's no insurance. Nexus is really the only insurance provider that I've seen that's insuring smart contracts, but they have a lot of clauses in there, the way that they underwrite it, where they're not going to cover things, and they still cover it in cash. They don't cover it in the asset. Here today, I talked to an insurance firm that does property and casualty insurance, and they also do captive insurance. Captive insurance is really interesting in crypto. I think that somebody will come out with a DAO solution. It may be us, it may be somebody else, but you'll be able to participate in that DAO, and you'll pay dues or premiums to that corporation in kind in your XRP. They'll take that XRP and use it in a liquidity pool or something else to be able to generate a safe, modest return on it. And then, if you do have a situation where there's losses, they would pay out in XRP for those losses. Because that's what people want. That's what I want. I want, if there is a loss, my stuff to be paid back in the native token. I don't want to be, compensated with cash at some point in the future when the price has changed or gone up. And as it sits today, that's how our insurance works at Anchorage. They're going to give you cash if something were to happen. Highly unlikely that's going to happen. Obviously, BlackRock's holding their assets there for a reason. But all that being said, it's still in cash at the time of loss. I think it's going to be really interesting to see, what products and solutions come to market over the next 5, 6, 10, 12 months in that regard when it comes to insuring your digital assets. Because again, your point here, now that you have Borrowland and some of this DeFi coming native to the XRPL, there will be people out there taking your stuff, and you want to make sure that you have some type of insurance on that. So you might not have, the same execution layer or governance around the assets, but many people don't need that either. Most people want to control what they're doing. They only want single sign-off for themselves. It really, a lot of the governance around, like, if you're going to do more than $1 million transaction or $10 million transaction, you probably want somebody else to have to sign off on that, right? So multi-sig for certain thresholds. We can do that in institutional custody. I don't know, that may be a functionality that we'd say adds to Zalman Wallet. I think that would be a great addition if you would go that direction and add, multi-sig where, above a certain threshold or value, you probably want oversight on that. That way, if the wallet gets hacked somehow and somebody does try to sign on your behalf, they can't do anything above a certain amount, and they can do below that, right? But all that being said, right, I think the space will continue to progress, and these amendments are huge moves forward. Permission domains should go live on February 4th, which is a big deal for institutional adoption. They need that, right? They need digital identity. They need credentials. They need all this stuff in place to make sure that it's in compliance with KYC, AML, OFAC, BIS, all the stuff that banks and institutions have to do. And if it's zero knowledge proof, pretty good. And again, this is kind of the reason, people have asked, well, what if the Clarity Act gets passed before XRP goes up? Don't think that's going to happen. Just the markup's going to happen tomorrow. And then we have the government shutdown if they don't pass the funding bill. I think they might kick the can again. I think there may be a situation where the government shuts down. We'll have to see. They're going to have to rush it through in the next 2 days if it's not going to. And if it does, that's going to continue to postpone the Clarity Act getting passed. The markup tomorrow is just to see, if it's good to be voted on by the Senate. And it's going to have to go back to the House before it goes to the president's desk. They're not going to get that done in 2 days. Highly unlikely, in my opinion, especially with the funding bill also right here. So in all likelihood, because they've, hem-hawed around about this, you're not going to see the Clarity Act really fully passed until late February, early March. And then you're getting into midterms. I don't know, they're going to be focused on that. I don't know that they're going to come back to the funding, the Clarity Act. And so, it's in all likelihood, like if I'm not a betting man, I've made my bets and then lost with scams at the end of last year. So, but if I were a betting man, I would expect the Clarity Act to be sometime in Q2 of this year, really, with everything at the point that we're at here in January. So all that being said, if we do see the straight close and oil spikes and XRP gets adoption, it's probably going to have a moat for at least a couple months before they even get the Clarity Act and there's competitors in the space. And that's what I've been talking about for a long time. If you really wanted to cement the XRPL as the back-end solution for settlement globally, you would give it some time before you passed regulation for everything else. And look, I'm here to advocate for the whole space. I want regulation. Obviously we operate in a very regulated business for our clients. But at the same time, I kind of have a bias toward XRP. So, take it with a grain of salt. Like I said, nothing here is financial advice. These are just my opinions. And again, appreciate you guys taking time out to listen to them. Honest Aim says, Mr. Legacy and the Tea Lady, Beyond Broke Mastermind is awesome. Shameless plug on Carbon's parent channel. Pretty good. Also, book club starting 7 Generations Legacy tomorrow. Join us. Thanks for all your leadership and all that you do for us. Awesome, dude. That is fantastic that you guys are sharing that information. 7 Generation Legacy is a great book. I think people should read that, especially if you do plan to have a family office and maintain wealth across generations. Again, that's, the whole premise behind me coming down here. Apex is 2nd and 3rd gen family offices. And a lot of what they talk about is continuity planning across generations. How do you instill those core values, traits, and beliefs with your kids so that they are good stewards of this wealth? Because that's really what the family is going to be over the long term. I talked about, what Patek, their motto or their slogan is: you never really own a Patek, you just steward it for the next generation. I think that's how people should probably start to look at these digital assets. You own it, right? You made the investment. They're yours. But at the same time, if you do have children, if you want to make an impact, if you want to leave a legacy, then probably need to start thinking about those things. You probably need to start discussing money with your kids. Growing up, my parents they made me feel like there was never enough money, which there wasn't. There was a few times where they came into some money and they bought a bunch of liabilities. They upgraded their lifestyle. They didn't invest it. And, I've tried to stray away from that, which has caused frictions in my marriage at times. I take the money and I put it where it's going to go to work, and haven't really upgraded our lifestyle or done a lot of the things that, most mid-30s people would do. We haven't bought a new home. We did just buy some new cars last year, but that was mostly for the tax write-off. Section 179, guys should check it out. Anything over 6,000 pounds, excluding luxury SUVs, unless they're driven specifically for work all the time, you're not going to get the full write-off on that. There we go. Now the pin looks good. But yeah, work with your CPA on all that. Again, we don't provide tax advice at Digital Ascension Group. We just work with really good tax advisors and CPAs. Bearded Boat Guy, my man, he says, legendary broski. What's up, dude? The new tax offering mentions SE taxes. My understanding was that any investment-only LLC wouldn't be subject to SE tax. So I didn't account for that in my net income. Am I mistaken? Not sure what you mean by SE. Let's give it a Google. Hold on. Hold your britches. We'll figure it out here. Self-employment. Got it. Okay. So the new tax offer mentions self-employment tax. My understanding was that the investment-only LLC wouldn't be subject to self-employment tax. So I didn't account for that in my net income. So until you pay yourself out of it, it's just a disregarded entity. It's passed through. Now, once you start making money out of the LLC, you are going to have to pay yourself some type of W-2. So that's, reasonable salary in the eyes of the IRS can be very broad. But if you're managing your investments, probably at least $50,000 to $70,000 a year in W-2 taxes, and you are going to pay the additional 13.5% taxes on top of that. In the way the operating agreements are structured, you have dividend periods where you can withdraw dividends. You can make that on whatever cadence you want. What I would do, if you do want monthly income from dividends, aside from your small salary that you're going to draw. That would be the best way to mitigate some of that self-employment tax. But when it comes down to it, all of this is passed through. So it's going to be accounted for on 1040. I think it's on your 1040. Again, not a tax professional. Work with a CPA to make sure that that's right. But yeah, it's passed through, and you will have to pay some self-employment tax if you did pay yourself an income out of the company. But again, you can make that $50,000 to $70,000 a year, and then that's all you're going to have to pay the additional 13.5% on. 19 Trades says gold is at 5,500. With your insights, what do you think? Again, I am scared. I'm glad people are making money. This is when gold does this, it means our currency is collapsing. I know people are excited about it. Like I said, I am deathly scared right now. The only way out of this is that they roll into this new system. If they allow this to continue, the COMEX defaults, there's a bunch of problems that will persist. So they're going to have to drive the price back down. The only way to do that is through the reverse carry trade and pulling liquidity out of all of these positions. Now, am I maybe a bit aggressive in the pullback that I'm talking about? Possibly. The reason I come to 2,000 or 2,100, just so you guys know, is that's the previous all-time high. And oftentimes when you do get a violent pullback from the top after a huge run-up, it tends to pull back to the previous all-time high. What used to be resistance becomes support, and then it'll continue higher from there. Am I right or wrong? We'll find out. But all that being said, I do think it'll touch that or test that at some point in the future, whether that's the imminent future or later on this year. That is my guess. So I know people don't want to hear that. People are excited and making a bunch of money. Again, never go broke taking profits. And it's actually 5,600 last time I looked at it. We got Blades of Gray. They say legend. First super chat posted by mistake. Mastermind member here. Awesome, dude. Glad to have you in the mastermind. I hear of a secret crypto meeting on Monday with Trump. Any ideas? Love you, man. Appreciate you, dude. Glad to have you in the group. If you guys want to be part of the mastermind, we're down to the last 3 days here for social memberships. So if you want to give it a try, we will be no longer taking any social members after the 31st of this month. So you can go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar gets you the first month for $5 off there for the social. And social will still be around. Everybody that's already in for social, you're not going anywhere. You're not getting kicked out. You don't have to upgrade any of that stuff. We're just not taking any new social members. It's going to be a minimum of $100 a month moving forward after this month in January. So if you want to try it out, we would love to have you. I would encourage you to go to the website and check it out. As far as the crypto meeting on Monday, there's, again, just talking with people here today, there's one lady that we're an LP in her fund. She's invested in a bunch of early startups. She seeded Securitize in 2017. She's participated in a bunch of other companies like Propto with her fund. And we were talking about the Clarity Act and some of that coming along. I don't know. The industry is kind of at a standstill. People are hopeful. There are people continue to build and innovate and create things. But until we get something passed that provides at least some clarity, which is, Brad Garlinghouse's stance, you just want something across the table so people know how to act and what to do in this space. Until then, Ripple's through the gate, but everybody else is still held up. And the meeting Monday could be an announcement of some kind. What I was going to say was, David Sachs is pretty well covered up with AI right now. And he really hasn't had the time to focus on crypto like I think a lot of people would have preferred him to. Trump made him crypto and AI czar. And then you got Patrick. I can't think of Patrick's last name. He's come in and he's more focused on stable coins. When he spoke at Swell with Brad Garlinghouse in the interview there, they talked a little bit about the Clarity Act, and they also talked about mainly stable coins and what that's looking like here in the U.S. Because that's really what's going to drive demand for U.S. Treasuries domestically over the long term. And they need that to be able to support the bond market and the Treasury market here in the U.S. So again, I think a lot of these people are focused on those components and not so much on, larger regulation for this asset class. I also, one of the things we talked about, her and I, was the separation of DeFi out of this bill, because that's really been the contention in all of it. If you're issuing tokenized securities, you're issuing tokenized commodities, that's a pretty easy way to discern who should be governing those things. Now, the tokens themselves, are they commodities? Are they securities? Do they start as a security and then over time change into a commodity? Are they all commodities? And then the contracts that sell this, the oranges in the orange grove, is that what's the securities? They really just need guidance on this stuff. But I do think that they're likely going to separate the DeFi component out of this bill and have another bill later this year after the Clarity Act gets passed that can, is institutional DeFi and how that's going to work. And again, that's a big deal for us because we need guardrails. We want to be able to tokenize this stuff. We want to be able to participate in DeFi ecosystems. Everything that we've done has been inside, the clunky TradFi system, adapting it to what we need to be able to, execute and provide people returns on their XRP. And, the other products that we're bringing to market, very similar. They're using traditional means to be able to leverage the asset or get exposure to stuff to be able to generate very low risk returns and yield for our clients. And after we get a DeFi bill passed that allows, there's going to have to be some centralization of this stuff. I know people don't want to hear that, but you need to be able to understand who you're participating with in these ecosystems. There needs to be oversight. There needs to be accountability. You can't just have people running rampant scamming people like it has been. And the institutions aren't going to adopt it or start using it until that's the case. So again, this is why I think the XRPL is so much further ahead of everybody else, is because they do have digital identity. They have credentials for KYB, KYC accreditation, qualified purchaser, AP, whatever qualification you have in order to be able to participate in different ecosystems. Also, a couple other things that I saw just thinking about it. Equities In and Morgan Stanley have partnered up. I got that announcement today, which was pretty cool to see. So Equities In is a platform that does private equity. Morgan Stanley does have a Series A and B marketplace. So there may be something there where, Equities In tends to be later stage stuff like Series B plus. So maybe there's something where Morgan Stanley is going to be selling their equities to Equities In to be able to then market that on and get their clients returns in a shorter duration. Because that's really the opposition for a lot of people, participating in private equity is you're locked up for 3, 4, 5, 10, 12 years. I mean, Ripple was founded in 2012. Their Series A invested at pennies. Obviously, they've done pretty well with the tender offers and everything else that they've done at this point. But we are here 14 years later, almost, and still no liquidity event for those investors, at least through the traditional lens of an IPO, right? So I think that that's going to be a big piece of what happens over the next 2 to 3 years is tokenization of private equity. The multi-purpose token on the XRPL is a big piece of that. I think that, people will leverage that because you're going to be able to issue different types of share classes on chain that are fungible, but have different voting rights and different things. Again, the XRPL is, in my opinion, the most institutional blockchain there is out there in the market right now, and continues to bring things through these amendments to itself that other people, it's just light years ahead of the rest of the industry. We got Abel or Abella. They say, if I want to partly sell, oh boy, partly sell after price appreciation, which is safer? Sell orders across multiple exchanges, or 2, sell order with Tangem. If number 2, should I have a separate cold wallet that connects to DApps to lower risk? I don't know what prices you plan to sell at or at what point during the volatility. exchanges are going to be illiquid when all this happens. Tether, I'm highly confident is going to have problems. Their liquidity source is going to be messed up. It's going to be difficult for them to execute orders, and there's going to be large gaps in the order book. So if there's nothing to match your price, so let's say you wanted to sell XRP at 25 bucks and there's no orders at 25 bucks, it just gaps straight to 90 or $100 like we've seen it do on Upbit and on Kraken. It's just going to skip you. It's not going to matter that limit order was in there. So all that being said, I would probably ride it through the volatility. Now, you said after price appreciation. So in my mind, post price appreciation looks like XRP is a high stable price. And then at that point, you'd be able to go through the DEX in your app or on exchange and be able to sell it. I don't think it's really going to matter which one it is. But that would be, again, I can't give you financial advice. My plan, I do plan to sell a small tranche. Oh, actually, I'll probably borrow against it, honestly. I don't know. Yeah, we have the liquidity providers. I'll probably just borrow against it. Because I believe in the price appreciation over the long term. I wouldn't want to shortchange myself. And if I have access to liquidity at a low interest rate, I don't know why you would sell something that's going to continue to appreciate. But to each their own, right? And if you do plan to sell some, I think you're going to be fine with either or if you're thinking about price appreciation and post price appreciation the same way I am. All right, scrolling on down. We're already almost an hour in here. We're going to wrap it up. I'm a little bit further out in the hotel today, so I don't think other people are going to complain about my loud noises. We'll go ahead and run the full 2 hours with you guys tonight. Dr. Denise, actually it's Dr. Dennis, D.A. Pont, 459. He says, if RLUSD is used for back-end settlement for tokenized stock and traditional market rails domestically, where does XRP capture value in the flow? How would RLUSD be used for settlement? It's not going to be. That would require that all the brokers and the clearinghouses trust Ripple as their counterparty. They're not going to do that. They would rather issue their own stablecoins if they were going to do that, because then they're able to generate the interest off the treasuries. So, that's a big part of the bill. I don't think people understand. The more people that use RLUSD, the more money Ripple makes. They don't pass on that yield to anybody else. So clearinghouses and brokers and other financial institutions, they're going to be incentivized to have their own stable coin. They won't want to, they might accept RLUSD if they're able to use it and stake it and earn yield or do something else with it. But for settlement, I can tell you that Project Ion does not use RLUSD to settle. It uses XRP because it's a neutral bridge asset that everybody can trust. You can see, nobody can freeze it or claw it back or do any of those things. It's got a DEX built into it, and it will route through the highest liquidity option that's the least cost. If XRP is a high stable value, it will always route through XRP versus other issued assets on chain, unless it is more convenient and cheaper to go through that other issued asset or a liquidity pool or an AMO. So again, I think this is just a common misconception that a lot of people have about stable coins, that everybody's just going to accept everybody else's stable coin. They are not. You need a bridge asset to be able to exchange, the whatever, they sold into for that stock to whatever the clearinghouse wants on the other side of it. It's probably going to be their own stable coins, like I said. So they need something in between those to be able to exchange them real time and settle. And that's, again, this is my opinion. Go do your own research. If you come to a different conclusion, don't invest in XRP. I got a new sign in my office. It's a quote from Satoshi, and it says, "If you don't understand it, I don't have time to explain it to you." I'm kidding a little bit on that, right? I try to come on here and provide you guys with as much context and value, and you do ask good questions. But there's going to come a point where it's just going to be, yep, it happened, and you miss the boat, and there's an adoption Cambrian explosion, and a lot of people are going to miss out. I mean, there's only 7.5 million wallets on the XRPL. If you're here watching this and you own some XRP, what is that? There's 8 billion people on the planet. It's like 0.0001% of the planet. One more zero than that. So anyway, very, very small portion of the population has ever even created an XRPL wallet. And most people have created multiple. So I would argue that you're probably, to be in the top 10% of XRP holders, you need more than 3,000 XRP. Maybe it's less than that now, like 2,300 XRP. That's the top 750,000 wallets. Like $5,000 gets you in the top 10% of wallets. And on the other side of this, you have to have 2 XRP to even open a wallet. If it's $1,000 a piece, it's going to be $2,000 to even open a wallet on the network. And again, this is for institutions. It was never even meant for retail. We were just lucky enough to be able to be here and get it and participate, stack our pennies next to their dollars type stuff. Green Candle, they say, Carbon One member here. Awesome. Glad to have you in the community. Any chance a foreign person can work with you and earn some passive income if we hold over 50,000 XRP? Yes. Yeah. Again, once we get this CD product to market here in the near future, that'll be anybody that's a client will be able to participate with that. And 50,000 XRP is our minimum. If you are international, we are accepting individual accounts now at Digital Wealth Partners. So you can, you don't need to go set up a corporation. Here domestically in the US, you do still have to set up a corporation. Again, Anchorage, not us. But we do have that live now for people. So if you're in Canada, if you're in Australia, if you're in the UK, if you're in, Abu Dhabi, wherever you are, and you don't necessarily want to structure something yet for whatever reason, you can work with Digital Wealth Partners directly as an individual, and we can onboard you. And again, I think we will have those products here in the near future so that people can generate that return and monthly income for themselves on their XRP. It's not going to be a crazy amount, 3 to 4% per year, maybe up to 5% if they take the interest rates back up. But at this point, for very, 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 very low risk, you'll be able to generate a monthly income for yourself. Rick Johnson, he says, Mr. Claver, how is Wally and Beaver? Number one, governments are control freaks. We could get our XRP taken like FDR took gold. What if that happens? They can't take it from you. I don't like this. This is some fear mongering that's been put out for a long time. And I was part of the valuation committee with Jimmy Valley. Okay. He put all of that together in case that happens so that you get a fair value for it. They don't need your XRP, Rick. They don't care about us. If a couple people get rich, they don't care. There's only 16 billion XRP on exchanges. The most of that is for the exchanges. It's not even for retail. Uphold probably has the most retail XRP, at around 5 billion XRP held by retail on their platform. And again, they were, around the whole time that the SEC lawsuit was going on. It's really the only place you could buy it. So all that being said, they can't freeze it. They can't claw it back. It's the native asset on that chain. They don't care. And this is the sad truth here. If you're watching this, you're one of the few people that's probably not going to mess this up. Most people, they're going to mess it up. They're going to sell it off. Think about how many people sold Bitcoin at $100. They were happy to have the money. They sold, they rode off into the sunset, and now they're kicking themselves, because it went up another 1,000x from there. XRP is going to be the same way. There's going to be a ton of people that are like, I'm out. I'm good. I finally got what I wanted. I got enough money to do da-da-da. And they'll sell it and they'll buy a bunch of liabilities. And then they'll be broke in 3 to 5 years. I don't like saying that, but that is just statistically true. Most people that are going to make a bunch of money in crypto and XRP don't know how to manage it. They've never had wealth before. They don't have good advisors or people around them to make sure that they're going to be able to cover their taxes and mitigate risk and structure things the right way to be able to prevent creditors and lawsuits. a ton of wealth is just going to get wasted on this deal, which is really sad, in my opinion, because I think so many good people are going to inherit this money that really do want to make an impact. At least that's been my experience talking to people that hold large amounts of XRP. Is they want to do well for themselves. They want to, take care of their family, but anything in excess of that, they want to do really cool stuff with. And those are the people that are being proactive and dreaming about this stuff and structuring things and putting stuff in position and learning all the stuff they need to learn. Whereas the average person, they're the dog chasing a car. And I hate to, give people that analogy, but you need to make a bunch of money. That's just how the paradigm that we live in. But they don't tell you what to do with it after that. They don't tell you, the wealthy people continue to hold assets and borrow against them. They don't talk about insurance policies and how to structure those. They don't talk about, in school, they don't teach you about trusts and how to structure that stuff, legacy planning, philanthropic donations or charitable foundations or charitable remainder trusts or donor advised funds. They don't teach you any of this stuff. You have to go look it up. All of it's available there on the internet. You can teach yourself, I promise you. Everybody that's watching this is plenty smart. But the majority of people aren't going to take the time to do that. They're going to sell it off. They're going to buy a bunch of liabilities. And 3 to 5 years, I'm hoping that we can do better than 50%. If we can help retail understand this stuff and make sure they're mitigating risk and structuring stuff the right way, I'm hoping that 50% of XRP holders will continue to have it for multiple generations. That's a lofty goal. It's a very lofty goal because 70% of lottery winners go broke in 3 to 5 years. So if we could just get 50% of people to understand these things and be able to, do all the stuff I just talked about, that's a huge win in my book. The government, they don't care. They're not coming to take your stuff. People will mess it up on their own, and they know that. K27 says, legend. Is there a scenario where oil spikes, Japan raises interest rates, reverse carry happens, and XRP does not go up in price? They use something else? No. There is not. I've told you, I've mentioned this a few times on here. I continue to harp on this because I've had enough validation from people that would know, that have supported the theory for the full duration that it's been out there. So whether you want to believe it or not, again, do your own research, come to your own conclusions. I'm just one guy on the internet. Take what I say with a grain of salt. Go, look at all the other brilliant people that are out there. There's a ton of other people that I hold in a very high regard that disagree with me. I'll tell you, and it kind of hurts a little bit because, if you watch the interview with Elon Musk, Buzz Aldrin and Armstrong, he looked up to those guys. And when he started SpaceX, they pretty much spat in his face. And he was enamored with them. He cries on camera when he's talking about it. I'm not that emotional about it, but when you have a strong opinion about something and you want it done a specific way and you have a high conviction on it, you're going to rub people the wrong way. Some people aren't going to agree with you. And that is okay by me. Because that is also how you get the real alpha in this world, is you bet against the consensus and you are right. And I have a very high conviction that I will be right. The Spartan, they say, hi, first, thanks for all that you do for the community. As a Persian, I am sure the conflict will escalate from what I hear. Why is it that we need the Clarity Act since XRP already has one and will be the only option? Isn't it going to be more valuable? I'm with you, my man. That's what I've been saying the whole time. XRP does not need the Clarity Act. It already has full clarity here in the U.S. as of July 13th, 2023, when the judge designated XRP in and of itself is not a security here in the U.S. So, XRP doesn't need the Clarity Act. Brad and Ripple have advocated for the space the whole time. They're not trying to have tribalism or, they just want a fair shake. Haha. And and the best technology and the best option win. Like that's what they want. And they believe that they have the best one, right? Otherwise they wouldn't be using XRP as the underlying network to be able to provide services and products to their clients. So I'm with you. I don't think we need the Clarity Act. And I do think that XRP will appreciate before it actually gets passed. The Jaybird says, good evening, legend. Carbon One here. Awesome, dude. Glad to see you. Been seeing a lot of Flare news lately. Partner with Kraken, FXRP, amount increasing, fast, Firelight, Layer 1, etc. Wrapped XRP, price appreciation. Bring Flare price along with it. And could Flare solve reward flight in Clarity Act? XRP, big bag. Good for you. Yeah, it's interesting. We talked to Hugo at Swell. I had him on the podcast. He's very focused in international business. He's not overly concerned with the U.S. here. But to your point, I do think that all tides will rise or all ships will rise with a rising tide. As XRP gets more liquidity, anything that's attached to it will also see a lot more liquidity. I am not a meme coin person, but I would bet you that when we see a bunch of liquidity flow into XRP, you're going to see, skyrocket in those meme coins. You're also going to see Flare and anything else that's wrapping XRP get more liquidity, like Solana. That's why I think they're doing it. I actually shot a video before I left last weekend that I think will air in the next 2 weeks that talks about the positive flywheel that happens as XRP continues to be wrapped as collateral on other chains and used in DeFi protocols. So all that being said, yes, I think that Flare will absolutely benefit from XRP's price appreciation. Now, wrapped XRP, again, like I said, as of today, is a taxable event when you execute that and swap it in Midas or Doppler or over there on Solana. Flare's works different. It locks it and then reflects that value so that it's not a new issued asset you're exchanging the XRP for. And that's why I think Flare is probably going to see the majority of the adoption in the short term here until they sort through the tax consequences. And I believe in what Hugo's doing. I like that team. I think that he has a great product and solution out there. But for us, it needs to be out of institutional custody. It's great to see adoption at Kraken. I think BitGo and Crypto.com and some of the other ones, maybe Coinbase. We'll have to see, where all they get listed and how that works this year. But I'm excited for all of that happening. I do think that it's going to be big for the industry and the team over there at Flare Finance. Jacobs, he says, hey, Jake, what's up, dude? Mastermind here. I recently had my Apple ID with all my passwords stolen. Oh, no. He said my decent was compromised. All my XRP and XLM were stolen. I'm sorry to hear that, dude. A significant amount of money. Immediately went to Bank Social, filed a report with them, FBI, Apple, FTC, help. I mean, if you got it to them pretty quickly, if the XRP is on an exchange somewhere or the XLM's on an exchange somewhere, they will lock it and they will get it back for you. Bank Social does a good job on all that stuff. John and his team are awesome. So if you filed, with the FBI, I don't know what the amount was, and I hate to hear that for you. And I don't want to say like this is a lesson for other people. I know somebody else that didn't have multi-factor authentication set up, and some other stuff in place to be able to mitigate the risk of somebody compromising their Google account, and they also lost a bunch of XRP because somebody got access to their Google account. So just be aware of that out there, guys. And this is another reason, and I'm not trying to shill you on institutional custody here, but that's not going to happen if you have your assets with us at Digital Wealth Partners. It can't. It's not contingent on your Apple ID or your Google ID or any of that. It's a completely separate login and password. You have to talk to a wealth advisor. It's multi-sig. They verify everything before they send stuff out there. You're also going to only have whitelisted wallet addresses, so they're not going to be able to send it to some other exchange or anywhere else, like they can out of a cold wallet. One of the institutions we're talking to, you can only send it to other regulated institutions. So it's like a double whammy, where they have KYC and AML and all the stuff on the accounts. So all that being said, I hate to hear that. I'm sorry for your loss. I'll be praying for you. I hope they get it back to you. Like I said, Bank Social does a good job. It's about 50% of the time that they're able to recover the assets, which is higher than anybody else I've ever seen. So best of luck on it. If you got it to them quickly, I have a lot of hope for you. Mike, he says, Jake, let's assume the reverse carry trade will unfold this week. What can we expect step by step, and also in what time? Thanks for all that you do. Cheers. I mean, I literally shot a video on it. If you want to go watch, the reverse carry trade, the domino theory part 4, I give you everything literally step by step by step in the progression of how it's going to play out in that video. So I would just, refer you to that. Appreciate the good question. But if that plays out this week, it should go exactly as the domino theory says. Liners has posted the LLC code here. So, we haven't talked about LLCs much tonight, but if you do need an LLC to be able to manage your digital assets, if you're in the U.S. and you want to work with Digital Wealth Partners, you will need to be holding your assets in a trust or an LLC. You could hold it in a C Corp or an S Corp. I don't know why you would do that. Well, maybe this is a good point. So if you want to hold your assets in a C Corp or S Corp, you could. And you could pay yourself $1, Bob, as a salary out of that and take the rest as dividends and mitigate a lot of the self-employment tax. The risk associated with that is you now have stock that's issued for an S Corp or a C Corp. If you get in litigation and that entity holds assets and somebody does take control of the stock, they can then sell all those assets and pay themselves back and then give you the worthless stock. You don't want to compromise that. You don't want to put yourself in that position. So that's why most of the time, 99.9% of the time, we'll structure an LLC, which is a limited liability corporation that has equity units. And again, strong creditor protection. You get charging order protection there in Wyoming. Does a lot of things for you to be able to mitigate the risk of a creditor coming and taking your assets. Now, over the long term, I do think that a lot of people will set up a C Corp as the management entity for their LLC. Not the owner, but the manager. And you'll be able to pass management fees there. And then you would be able to pay yourself $1, still benefit, take money out of the company, borrow against assets, do stuff like that, and likely have your living trust, your revocable trust sit on the cap table of your C Corp. The other thing about an S Corp, you can't have a trust on the cap table. It has to be individuals here in the US. So all these little nuances, again, they don't teach you any of this stuff in school. If you took business law in college, maybe you got some of it. But you should be working with really competent, capable attorneys to make sure that, they know how to structure the estate and mitigate risk across things to make sure that, you have strong creditor protection and people aren't going to be able to just take your stuff. So if you want to work with us, we would love to have you. Just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and you can use the code 50OFF50OFFDAGLLC. That's 50OFFDAGLLC. Get you everything end to end, everything set up the right way, corporate veil, registered agent, EIN, articles of organization, the template for the operating agreement, which is crucial, and all the filings and stuff that you need to maintain that corporate veil with our team there at Laughlin. So again, would love to work with you guys on that if it's something you're interested in. It is $2,000. The living trust is $500, and the assignment for the assets or the LLC to the living trust is an additional $500. So three grand all in, which is going to be cheaper than any attorney. I can't guarantee you that, but I'm really sure. And then, if you want to use the code webinar trust alongside, the 51 that I just gave you, get an additional $200 off the trust and the assignment. So it's $800 for both of them. We got Bly the Beasley, 1x1G. They say, hey Jake, Carbon 2 here. Awesome dude. Glad to see you. Last night, was sorry I wasn't able to meet the Carbon 2 call last night, but hopefully you got a lot of information from Dan. I think, we try to have really good people there in Carbon 2 that are the more advanced estate planning and people that can mitigate taxes and kind of give you guys some additional value on those calls on Tuesday. And I hope you enjoyed that. When I'm not able to attend, I had, other obligations last night. My question is, how confident are you in $10,000 XRP by the end of the year? And what timeline is DWP going to get yield on XRP? That's really contingent on like a lot of things playing out by the end of the year to get to 10,000. I do think we're going to see a Cambrian explosion here this year in 2026, and adoption of this asset class and implementation of the XRPL at scale across institutions, enterprises, markets, back-end settlement. The only way that it gets to $10,000 though is derivatives. And, that could take a little bit longer. When listening to, State Street, and Blackstone and BlackRock and all the other people at Swell, they said that they thought, all of the markets would be tokenized by the end of 28, or 2028, really. So it may take a bit longer for a 5-digit XRP. I've said, the end of this year, early 27. Again, with all the events that could play out in between now and then, it's absolutely possible. You're asking how confident I am. I mean, I'm 100% confident that it's going to happen. I just don't know that it'll be this year. 4-digit XRP and 3-digit XRP looking really good, with the macro. But again, all of those things have to play out. So twiddling my thumbs, just waiting on it like everybody else. But it does feel close. And he says, what's the timeline on the yield product? We got a meeting tomorrow, and if they sign on the dotted line, it'll be a couple weeks for beta, and then we'll be able to roll that out to all of our clients there. Hopefully, if everything goes the way I want it to tomorrow, then mid-Feb would be when we come to market with it. But again, that's contingent on everything getting executed tomorrow. We already went over this one for Jaybird and Spartan. And Craig, appreciate you guys. Sometimes it kicks me up here in the chat. I'm scrolling down. If you wouldn't mind, if you are watching, don't do any more super chats, because I'm not going to get to them. And I don't want people to spend the money and then me not answer your question. So I'm going to try to get to all of them tonight. If I don't get to your super chat, again, you can send it to us on other social media platforms. My wife is collecting them. She let me know that. I'm not at the house tonight for her to print them out. And so, I'm not answering those, but we did get them, and we will answer them next Monday. Tim says, hello, sir. Why would someone want a spot ETF when you can get a 2x leverage XRP ETF? If you are confident in price appreciation, why would you not be smarter? So leveraged ETFs are meant for trading. That's what they're meant for. So timing matters. You can actually lose money on the leveraged ETF if the price is moving down, because it compounds the losses. So people that bought the 2x leverage XRP ETF when it first came out, they're down right now if they just continue to hold it. So that's why, some people, it depends on your ability to trade derivatives and use leverage, how sophisticated you are, and how much risk you can tolerate. Some people can't even get access to it because they don't qualify with their financial advisor to even be able to participate in a leveraged product. Now, if you can, and you could time it right, heck yeah, that's where, the big gains are going to be. But just know that, there's going to be volatility in it, and it is meant to be traded. And that's how most people use it. And really the best tax advantage you're going to get for that is going to be inside of an IRA or a 401k, holding it that way and trading it there. You're going to be able to defer or trade that tax-free depending on what type of product you're in. And that's why we have the trading product at Digital Wealth Partners for IRAs. We've got people subscribing to that right now that want to be able to generate additional cash and returns and compound their XRP inside their IRA. So if that interests you and you have an IRA somewhere else, you can reach out to Digital Wealth Partners. Just go to digitalwealthpartners.net. Go to the contact us form. Let them know that you'd like to migrate your IRA from somewhere, or set one up with us to be able to compound XRP inside your IRA. And we do traditional, SEP, Roth, whatever you got. We can make it happen. Neo the One says, looking sharp. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. How often do you water fast? When in Scottsdale, Arizona, let's get a lift. 25 years of coaching pro athletes and executives like yourself. Awesome, dude. Yeah, I would love to. I don't know when I'm going to be in Arizona. We've got a tax professional that we work with there in Arizona, and we actually have one advisor that's also in Arizona. So haven't seen any crypto conferences or anything that's drugged me over there to the state, but you never know. And if I am, I would love to work out with you. I don't water fast that often. I really haven't dieted in a long time. I dieted down at the end of, I dieted last year for XRP Vegas, and I got down to like 10% body fat for XRP Vegas. You don't retain muscle if you're fasting. And you know that, right? If you're coaching pro level athletes, the main benefit of fasting, in my opinion, is autophagy, right? So, if your body's always working your gut, digesting food, it never gets time to rest. So your stuff gets built up, your body, focuses energy there, and it doesn't get to clean out the other stuff going on. I think water fasting is great. I know people that do 3 to 5 day water fasts, and they do that, biannually or quarterly. And that does help, mitigate the risk of cancer, and help clean out, unused, things that aren't functioning well in your body. Also, you lose fat, but you're going to lose muscle during that period of time too. The most success I had with people dieting down and retaining muscle or growing muscle was a 24-hour alternating fast for men. And as long as you're, supporting your hormone profile, oftentimes they'd be on TRT. If you do a 24-hour fast, you actually get an upregulation in your metabolism after 18 to 20 hours, where your body drives adrenaline and norepinephrine, and your metabolism actually jumps up. And so after that, though, it tapers off. Your body will start conserving resources. So if you can fast, call it 20 to 26 hours every other day, you're going to get a lot of the health benefits. You're not going to get deep autophagy. You're going to get some, but that way you're not downregulating your metabolism over a longer period of time. And the next day you can eat like 1.25, 1.5 times your TDEE, which is your total daily expenditure of calories. And, mostly I would have people have, it was a mainly ketogenic diet, but they would have carbohydrates around their training to allow them some quick energy to continue to lift strong, and that worked really well. There was multiple men that I worked with that were over 300 pounds that we dieted down to about 200 pounds in 6 to 8 months using that method. So, big into all that. We actually had a guy that talked about on the Saturday town hall this last week, peptides for the whole community there in the mastermind. So if you're interested in progressive health, which I think everybody should be, especially post price appreciation, if you're not spending, a good chunk of money on your health and longevity post price appreciation, I would encourage you to start thinking about that. You can't enjoy wealth if you're unhealthy. If you're healthy, you have lots of wants and lots of things. If you are unhealthy, the only thing you want is to be healthy again. And if you want to operate at a very high level, you're oftentimes going to be taking supplements. The food that we eat just doesn't have the nutrition necessary to be able to support the highest level of performance for people. So oftentimes you're going to supplement things. And then as you age, things change, right? Hormone profile changes. And so if you can supplement that to make yourself feel like you're 20, 25 years old, even though you're 50, 60, 70, you're going to have a really good quality of life. And I think that's what people are going to be focused on, post price appreciation, or hopefully so. He says, why with a reverse carry trade, why do you say that XRP won't move without the reverse carry trade if everything else is moving forward? It could move, but it's not going to go to the numbers that I've been talking about. It's not going to go to 3 or 4 digits. Okay. And that's me price appreciation. Some other people think price appreciation is $5 or $10. They're going to be sorely mistaken. They're going to be selling way too early. For me, can't give you financial advice. In my opinion, I think they're going to miss a lot of upside because they don't think it's going to go to the crazy prices that I do when the reverse carry trade unwinds. You need a supply shock to be able to drive it to a valuation where it can start to be used. And without that scenario playing out, there's not really another scenario that's going to, you need a huge amount of demand to drive it to $100, like a crazy amount of demand. You need a supply shock. And you need, I think it's going to be timed to save the financial system. Like that's what it was created to do, in my opinion. I think BlackRock is much more involved than people realize. So again, you don't have to take my word for it. You seem like a sharp guy, asking good questions. These are just my opinions. And again, my thesis, which has been validated by people much smarter than me that have the connections to be able to validate it. But if you think something else could play out, you could absolutely be right. Quick Fit says, how do you feel about XTC? And do you think it'll be a multi-chain world? Also, if there's a shutdown, it's supposed to be a partial one. But it only needs to be a partial one, right? Like I said, we only need a 20 to 30% jump in oil in a very short period of time to cause inflation there in Japan and for them to have to, move on the interest rates. Talking about XDC, I take a moment of silence. There's somebody that recently passed away that I don't know if it's public yet or not, that was involved with that project and a good friend of ours. And so praying for him and his family and those close to him over there at XDC. So shout out to them. And, again, going to take a small moment of silence for that individual. So blessings to them. And again, prayers going out to them. Do I think it'll be a multi-chain world? Yeah, I absolutely think it'll be a multi-chain world. XTC is fantastic at what it does for, creating value for contracts. It does a good job of that for trade finance, and I think it'll do a good job of that in other applications. I know Atul and Ritesh, spoke with Ritesh recently on a panel at Crypto Mondays last year in November. I got to sit down with the foundation. We have some things that we want to do with XTC, and I absolutely think it's definitely going to be one of the players over the long term. But again, I've talked about this before. I think XRP is going to be a meteoric rise in a very short period of time, whereas these other assets are going to have more of a long tail adoption curve and price appreciation, very similar to like a Solana. As more liquidity moved into that ecosystem, you saw the price continue to rise over a period of time. I think that's how HBAR and XLM and XDC and many of these other utility-driven tokens are going to move and appreciate. John, my man, he says, I just ate a brownie. The only problem is I need to eat a brownie on a beach. The rest is just noise. OTC supply left. Brownie sounds really good, my man. They had a little cake thing at dinner. I'm a big man. Okay. I'm like 240. Little cake thing's not quite going to cut it for me on the dessert. I want something a little more substance. So I'm probably going to get me something after we get off here. Anyway, OTC desk. We've seen the ETFs kind of dwindle, especially last week, and how much they were buying. I think they're tapering that off, maybe, because if they don't, they're going to, again, tinfoil hat, you can believe me or not, I think a lot of this is coordinated to be able to drive the supply shock at the right time. We've got a couple of days here, 3 days left until the Ripple escrow is released, and there'll be more on the OTC desk. I think we're below 100 million on the OTC desk currently. And, if things escalate before the first, you could absolutely see that supply shock as the volume moves to the exchanges. But again, you need volume on the ETFs. You need BlackRock to come out on a Monday and do things if they don't do it on a Friday. So at least, again, just my 2 cents, and I appreciate the question. Truest of Hearts again. KT Baby, what's up? They say, is it possible that retail price of XRP can be held down lower than it would be for banks and corporates? Do you think XRP will be repriced? XRP is the price of XRP. Doesn't matter if it's on a side chain, if it's wrapped on another exchange. The reason for that is if there was any way to be able to arbitrage XRP so you could buy it cheaper and sell it higher somewhere else, that market would then, fix itself. It's a self-regulating mechanism. I actually, this is a good question. I asked David Schwartz this exact question on Twitter. This is probably, almost 2 years ago at this point. It was when sidechains, started to become relevant, and they added, Zao and Hooks and the EVM sidechain. And I was like, well, could there be, a different price XRP on a sidechain? He was like, no. If it was, people would arbitrage it to the point where it was the same price again. So that comes for David Schwartz, another person that I hold in a high regard, and I think is smarter than me. I mean, he designed the XRPL. So if anybody I'm going to listen to, it's going to be him. Do I think XRP will be repriced? I think it'll be repriced through supply and demand. So when I say XRP will be repriced, I'm talking about a repricing of all assets when the reverse carry trade unwinds. I think XRP will be repriced. I think gold will be repriced. I think stocks will be repriced. I think real estate will be repriced. All this is going to be from supply and demand and liquidity dynamics across all these markets. Now, and I think a lot of people think repriced means pegged. You can't peg XRP. If you did, then it's not going to be dynamic. It's not going to be able to move with markets and expand or contract based on the volume on the network. Now, you could just have, a liquidity provision. It could be, a very high price. They could peg it at, call it $50,000 or something crazy. But that's going to cause a bunch of other problems. So it would definitely have enough liquidity to support everything. But I think there's going to be a stair step on this. I think it's going to move aggressively. I think it's going to be stable for a period of time, move aggressively, stable for a period of time. And they'll do that through supply shocks on the market to be able to drive it to those prices. They won't have to reprice it like they did gold in 1933. Where is the trustworthy place to stake XRP with good return rate? I don't know what a good return rate is for you. We're going to be paying somewhere between 3 to 5%. It won't be staking. It'll be a CD product that, you'll lock your XRP for 6 months or 12 months. It's delegated or reflected with a counterparty that I think you guys are going to be very happy with. But, that's the mechanism by which we can take this to market and, provide a solution as it sits today. XRP doesn't have a native staking mechanism available. And anybody tells you that they are staking XRP is either talking about wrapping it on Flare as FXRP or they don't know what they're talking about or they're doing something sketchy. Richard, Mr. Bruce. My dad's name is Bruce. He says, quick question, email from Old Glory. What is the nature of this business? Please be specific. Thank you for everything that you do. So much more to say. Much love. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for the good question. So if you worked with us to be able to structure your corporation, it is a holding company that manages alternative investments. That is the answer to that question. And if they ask what type of alternative investments, you're going to say, we could potentially invest in real estate or private equity or other alternatives. That's all you have to say, because that's what it is. That's how we structure it. Obviously, there's provisions in the operating agreement specific to digital assets and the governance around those. But we've added a provision now for private equity. And it's a holding company to manage alternative investments. That's the number that it's filed under. 551112 or 551114 is the NAICS code. So you can look that up and give them that information also if you wanted to share with them, this is my NAICS code, and this is the nature of the business. Banks are gonna ask you questions, and hopefully you have the answers. And hopefully here for too long it won't matter. They'll be happy to have people that are holding large amounts of crypto. We got Husker Nation. They say, if XRP replaces the liquidity and settlement for USD provides, will other fiat currencies be equal? Then maybe backed by assets like gold, silver, land, housing, and commercial assets. Great work. I've talked about this before. I do think that there will be a level playing field for sovereign currencies globally that will be issued on chain. And they will be backed. I think the treasuries that back the stable coins will be backed by commodities. I think that gold will be pegged to oil in a specific ratio, and countries will hold gold, oil, or XRP as their backing for whatever their stable coin or whatever their treasuries are, because I think those will be tier one assets. U.S. treasuries, we'll have to see with the volatility if they continue to maintain their tier one status. I think they're going to. I think they've shored things up. They know how much, how many treasuries are going to flow onto the market and for what amounts. And they've already, coordinated with the banks to be able to shore up the bond market when that happens. Yeah, great question. I don't know that they're ever going to use land or housing or commercial assets. Those are too risky. Those things move up and down depending on, GDP and economics and where they're located and geography and all that stuff. So I think it'll be gold. I don't think could be silver. Both Lincoln and Kennedy wanted to reinstate the treasury and issue our currency out of there using silver. And we know what happened to both of them, unfortunately. The central banks do not like that. QuarterX says, random thought, if the value of XRP is priced in dollars and the value of dollars keeps changing, what would the price have to be to break it, like it gets too expensive? It's an interesting question. They can't break it. So it's all relative, right? Like the value of our currency is, until it's fixed again, which I think it will be. I think they'll issue gold-backed bonds and we'll be fine. But until then, we have floating exchange rates, and the value of the dollar continues to go down. We're seeing that in gold and silver and other assets right now. As the stock market goes up, that means your dollar is worth less. Now, again, I think there'll be a repricing. I think they'll shore up the dollar. XRP, I'm going to sound crazy, okay? But again, I think over the long term, you're going to see markets priced in XRP. I think they're going to be priced in drops. How long does that take? 5-10 years before we actually have markets priced in XRP. So your stock portfolio would be priced in XRP. You might still use dollars to purchase the stocks, and obviously there'd be exchange and amount that would be viable for that. But commodities in particular, I think, may be priced in XRP. XRP, in my opinion, stands for the exchange rate peg. There was a paper that was issued by the IMF in 2014, and that is when Ripple rebranded Ripples to XRP. Coincidence? Maybe. Probably not. We've got Raymond. He says 3 prophets have seen XRP. Kim Clint in 2011, 2014, and both Brandon Briggs and Joseph Z have seen XRP. Seems to be a lot of believers in XRP. End time wealth transfer thoughts. I believe in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and I believe that He will come back. I don't know that we're in the end times. Like there's people have thought we've been in the end times for 1,000 years. Okay. It'll happen at some point. But maybe this is that. Maybe it's the wealth transfer. The meek shall inherit the earth. Like I've said that before on a couple podcasts. I wholeheartedly believe that. And I do think that's what this is. Now, as far as prophets go, I am not a prophet. I feel called to do what I do. I have a strong relationship with Jesus, talk and walk with him every day. But I was not given a vision of anything. I don't proclaim that I'm a prophet in any way. Definitely not Jesus. Some people have, said the Jesus of crypto. It's not me. It's not Coach Jay-Z or JC either. There's a lot of people out there like Bo, and not to throw shade on Bo. Everybody has their hustle. Everybody does what they do. There have been a lot of things that people have seen that haven't come to pass. So, I don't want to say a blind squirrel gets an acorn every once in a while. I'm one of those people, right? Like I'm going to be right eventually on this stuff. Timing it is hard because there are so many different things that are happening globally, and it's complex, and it's not just this is when it's going to go. And maybe they're the same way too. They see that this is going to happen. They don't know exactly when or how. I'm pretty sure I got the how down, like really sure I got the how down. But there are a lot of good people out there that are connected divinely in some way and probably do have visions. I've not met anybody yet in my life that I have seen that like has that capability. And I'm always a little bit skeptical of anybody that makes that their platform. Not that they aren't good people. And again, I just don't choose to do that. I come on here and talk about it occasionally. But I've never wanted, when I went to church when I was young, I got preached at or preached to. Not into that really. I would rather people talk about how God has helped them in their life or stories and relate to that versus somebody telling me like, this is what you should believe, and again, I haven't watched these individuals, so I don't know if they're that way or not. But anyway, I'm glad that other people are seeing it. I'm glad that other people are sharing it. And I think it will help people, stay the course and see it through and benefit greatly from it and help a lot of other people on the other side. We already did this one. There's Raymond again. We'll go to the bottom and then we're going to work our way back up. You guys are doing good, not doing super chats. Appreciate y'all. Because again, I don't want you to spend the money and then we not get to it. There we go. You guys are definitely not doing super chats. It's good. There's a lot of chats. You guys are keeping it stacked over here in the comment section, which I appreciate. One thing, I always forget to say this. If you wouldn't mind, please like, subscribe, share this with other people if you're finding value. The WJT says, can he get a shout out? Shout out, my man. Glad to have you over here on TikTok watching. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind, like, subscribe, share this if you're getting value from it. If you're not, don't do it. But it does help the channel, helps the algorithm, helps us reach more people, and hopefully help more people. Rocky Mountain Jack, good to see you, dude. Thank you for the super chat. Hope you and your sister are doing well. I'm gonna pick on Jack for a little bit here. I've been doing this for 4 years at this point. And there were a lot of people, I say a lot of people, a few people that reached out very early on and I had conversations with. When I started consulting and doing all this, I did it for free. I took probably 50 or 60 consults with people just to try to help people out, completely free. And then over time, more and more people wanted consults. And so we started to charge for it, qualify people, do the whole business thing. But at the end of the day, we really do just want to help people. I'm here to provide, educational resources and explain things and try to make it easy for people to understand. The whole mission behind the mastermind was to help 1 million people become financially free. And we've got 18,000 people that are part of that community, which is, again, mind-boggling for me that many people want to come listen and participate and join together and help one another. It's hard to find. There's just not. I've never been part of a community with the same culture, and I'm extremely proud of all the people in there for how much they want to help other people and better themselves. It's a blessing to be a part of. So again, here before the end of the month is the last opportunity for social. If you don't have that much extra money, it's $25 a month. Get in there, check it out. If you don't like it, it's month to month. You can cancel at any time. But 18,000 people sticking around and choosing to stay around should tell you a lot about the value that's provided there for the price. I think we actually got through all of the super chats here. So unusually, I am going to go over to TikTok and take some questions over here. We never get to you guys because I always answer the super chats. We'll take one more from here and then we'll go to TikTok. We got Snail. He says, when do we hear 0% tax on capital gains in crypto? Other countries are already doing it. Crypto capital of the world, but it sounds like we're falling behind. You and me both, brother. I would love to see 0% capital gains here on crypto in the US. I think that they're going to have to do it for specific assets because otherwise banks are going to have small little changes in like the settlement amount and they're going to have to tally all of those. And at scale, it just doesn't make sense. So I'm with you. I do think that we're going to get no capital gains on crypto. But there may be a caveat there that you have to be using it for settlement. If it's an investment, they might still get you. I don't know what they're going to do. I would love it to be tax-free, believe me. But I do think if they do it that way, it's going to incentivize a lot of people to sell. And cool. You made a bunch of money, sell it, it's tax-free. Why wouldn't you do that? Well, cost of benefit, right? Like over the duration and the long term, if you thought something was going to continue to go up in value, selling it and not being able to buy it back, like I don't think you'll be able to, is going to be detrimental to your long-term success and generational wealth. So even borrowing against it at 4 or 5%, 6%, you're going to be paying something. It's going to be more than selling it. But if you look at the appreciation of the asset, it actually makes sense to probably structure it that way versus selling it off. And again, we're different. I build solutions so that people can hold this for, the next 100 years. Other people out there want you to sell because that's how they make their money. We don't make money when you sell. We make money when you hold it. I try to align incentives with people for their best interest. And so, we do 20 basis points with no spread at Digital Wealth Partners if you sell. It's the cheapest way you can sell or buy crypto at Digital Wealth Partners. Now, we do charge AUM fees as the assets appreciate in value. Those come way down. Over $10 million, it's only 40 basis points a year. So, if you held it with us for a year and then you sold it all off, you'd pay 60 basis points or 60% of 1% if you have over $10 million. And I think a lot of people that are holding XRP, if you have at least 50,000 XRP, you're going to be over $10 million in the not too distant future when all this plays out with the reverse carry trade and the domino theory. So would love to work with you guys over there. If you have at least 50,000 XRP, if you're international, don't have to have a business or a trust set up. You can come work with us. If you are domestic here to the U.S., you do need a corporation or a trust set up. We can help you with that through the LLC or the trusts or other things that we do. We also do more complex estate planning. You can reach out to our team there and they'll connect you with Dan Plaskett. He's our chief architect for long-term estate planning. 45 years in the business, extremely intelligent. Just was on the Carbon 2 call yesterday with our group there. Over 400 people there in Carbon 2. I don't know how many listened back to that call, but huge value there. And then again, Gen X has posted the code here for the LLC. So if you want to work with us on that, there's the code for you. It's 50 off 50 OFF DAG LLC. And again, you do have to have that if you're domestic here to be able to work with DWP, get access to returns on your XRP if you're accredited, the yield product in the very near future. We can do IRAs. We have the tax service now that we're working with. We don't prepare your taxes, but we work with one that does. We have insurance if you want to, look at the insurance products, get term insurance, and then I'm forgetting. The mastermind. So maybe you're not ready for all that yet, and you just want to learn about all this stuff, and you want to be a part of a community that's growing and bettering one another. You can go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO. For the next 3 days, we'll get you $5 off social. And after that, we will not be taking any more social members. Manny's asked about the emergency meeting. What are you drinking? It's just water. It's just water in a can. Health as well on vibrational panel. Interesting. I'm big, you can call me woo woo, but I think the frequency stuff, it matters. And it is, I think a lot of that's going to come forth, and there'll be, stuff like that helps people. Start of the reverse carry trade, unwind until price appreciation. How long? Your guess is as good as mine. Everything's there in the Middle East right now to set that off, and Trump has said they're going to block this trade on Friday if things don't change. So big week. We'll see. Lots of stuff right here on the horizon. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up and go get me some grub. Hope y'all have a wonderful evening. Thank you again for taking time out of your Wednesday to come hang out with me over here on TikTok, X, YouTube, and Facebook. If you got value from this, again, please like, subscribe, share it with somebody else. And hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we will see you on the next one.